Hi there, and welcome to the HR podcast. This is Linda Misegadis
and Cyndi Manuel, and we'll be your co-hosts. After spending years working in and with HR, we thought, why not start a podcast to support the important HR community? We believe the way things have always been done isn't necessarily what's going to work in the future. So we're diving into topics that support HR and working women as they navigate the future of work. We're talking about professional growth and also how we can support each other as human beings.
We can't wait to bring you insights from HR experts, thought leaders, and inspiring women who are making a real difference in their organization and communities. They'll share their journeys and tips on balancing work and life in a better way. We're excited to learn alongside you and hope you'll pick up some great takeaways from tips and tricks to worksheets that you can actually use in your daily life. So grab your favorite beverage
or lace up your walking shoes and join us for the HR Her Resources podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Her Resources podcast. I'm here with my incredible co-host, Cyndi Manuel.
Hello.
And we have a special guest behind the scenes today. Our producer, Logan Misegadis, is joining us as well.
Logan.
Well, I'm usually behind the scenes today. I'm not, right?
Right. You're right here in front of us. Yep, absolutely. You are on camera.
Welcome to the party.
Welcome to the party for sure. No.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. My longtime listener, first-time caller.
Yeah.
Thanks for being a fan.
That's right. That's right. We all need at least that one. So,
thank you for being our one fan.
Exactly. No, we're excited for this episode. I mean, I can't believe we're already at Thanksgiving. How crazy is that? The year just continues to fly by.
Where did it go? And
right?
Yeah. What do you guys do for Thanksgiving? Just curious.
We are pretty low key, honestly. I think, we kind of stick to home, and it's usually just Logan and his dad and me, and Logan's girlfriend, Shanzay, comes and joins us. Sometimes
maybe like a friend of mine that doesn't
exactly.
have
Yes, we might have a straggler or someone, come over and but we just kind of, it's just a chill, kind of relaxed day. Gone are the days of those big family gatherings. We just don't have those like we used to. But how about you? Because you've got a pretty big family, Cyndi.
The family is massive, and I love that. And this is our holiday at our house.
Okay.
Where everybody comes to. So we're talking about gone are the days where everybody comes to your house.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Not for you.
You know what? I love that because to me, there's like food and music, I think, are two sort of connectors.
Yep.
And so we've got, some good old James Taylor going in the background and, all kinds of music, and people are talking and catching up. And we're expecting a house full.
Wow.
And my immediate family always teases me that I always make way too much food, but
you never have too much food.
Right?
Not around that.
Especially Thanksgiving.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my brother's like, hey, I'm gonna fry a turkey, and I'm like, bring it on. Like,
yes,
we're already gonna have one that we're doing, but who cares? Like,
you got the regular one, you the fried one.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Options. Options are always great. That was the one time of year that my mom really went way out. Like she would make she made homemade pies, like homemade crusts, the whole 9 yards, everything she did. And so she would make like 20, 30 pies every year because everybody would want my mom to make their pies for them. And so she'd make apple and cherry and pumpkin, and we just, and then just everything. She just always went all out and all from scratch. She didn't do anything that wasn't from scratch.
Made with love.
Yeah, it totally was made with love.
Right?
And even though our house was very tiny, you didn't feel that way during the holidays.
Never.
We could have 100 people in there and it wouldn't feel any different than when we had 10 people in there. It was just like, it was weird, almost like the house got bigger, and maybe it was just filled with love or
magic.
something. Magic. Yeah, exactly. Holiday magic. So
that's
always
funny.
a great
Your
memory.
mom brought dessert because my mom sent out to the big, group text whatever everybody wants for dessert, let me know. And she's like, the more the merrier. And so, same thing. And she's like, what do you want? And I said, well, pecan pie, of course.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
we'll be getting some pecan pie. Yeah.
There you go. No, that's always good. Well, our episode today is on gratitude, which is why Logan is joining us in the studio, because we're reflecting back on this past year and really this past season for us with the launch of Her Resources podcast. And, just a reminder for everyone of what is the true meaning of gratitude, which is, when you feel thankful for the good things in your life. And it can be stuff, that people often take for granted, like having a place to live, food, clean water, friends and family. It's really taking a moment to reflect on how lucky you are when something good happens, whether it's small or big. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us, because I know I fall victim to it myself, where, you kind of get in these woe is me situations where you've got to look at the really amazing things that are going on in your life that are little. Like, I am very grateful for my husband, for my home, for my job, for my friends, for my family, like all of those little things like that. And we forget sometimes. So we just thought it'd be fun to, since it's Thanksgiving week, we could talk a little bit about gratitude and reflect back on some of those amazing things that we saw this last season.
Yeah. We're very thankful for you, Logan. You're the one who makes these all look good and sound good. And
yes,
it was also my idea. I pitched it originally.
You are
that
absolutely
was your original
right.
idea. Oh wow! Okay, well now I'm learning something. I mean, Linda
I'm saving it for the reveal for now.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Well, thank you.
Yeah, nope. He did actually. He came to me and he was like, "Mom, I think you should do a podcast." And he's like, and he was telling me all the things he thought, and I immediately thought, who would I want to co-host this podcast with me? Oh, I know. My friend, Cyndi Manuel, that's who I would want to co-host with me. So it was an easy call for sure. So I'm grateful for both of you for sure.
Yeah, and I'm glad that it's gotten, its legs as it's moving and stuff like that. I think for me, that was kind of like, I really do enjoy the conversations. And so that was like from the previous one with Eventual Guide to Success, to shout out that if anybody wants to check that out as well. We'll have new episodes coming sometime. Yep. And that was just so enlightening for me, like to be grateful for that, of being able to like, I'm listening to people I never would have met. I never would have, heard them talk, and just listening to their dialogues. And like, I feel like as being a part of that, being like literally like I'm the first person that hears it, is like, it's a really cool feeling, for lack of a better explanation. Like, I know a lot of people, they might not watch to the 7-minute mark of the video, or they might not make it all the way through. But I think being a part of that and like listening to it as it's happening and the natural dialogue as it's going along, it's something that you don't get a lot of from individuals nowadays. I think we're very separative, like I work from home. I don't really have that many peers within my world that I'm doing. Everything is kind of created either by what I'm trying to create, or every now and then I fall into somebody who's like, in that same kind of vein. But it was just so interesting. And it also helped me, I think, kind of take where I was going with my work career, of being able to say, oh, well, like, these people are just people. Because I think that that's something I'd struggled with so much, was like, how do I break into a corporate field? How do I even, like, will they take me seriously? Can they talk to me? Blah, 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 that type of stuff. And like, I feel like once I started listening to them talk and them dialogue and stuff, I realized that it's kind of that high level thought process that, people in leadership have, or people in management have to have. And like, I've worked in that before, but I never really applied it back to myself. As now I feel like I'm reapplying it. I'm like, oh wow, look at all these skills that I didn't realize that I had already developed, and how I can reincorporate them into my, into my work life as well, basically. Because up until now, I've been pretty much just trying to figure it out by myself, like I've had support from my parents, which was very awesome, but I've been pretty nomadic. Like the last few years, finally, I live in a house that I'm like, I pay rent here. This is where I go consistently and like those types of things
You
that
grew
like,
up. That's what happened.
well, I settled down,
Adulting.
That's right.
yeah,
Adulting.
I stopped sleeping in garages and cars and stuff like that and
Oh.
trying to go to the
No.
next spot or whatever and figure it out.
Right.
And I think that was kind of what, for me, I'd been running from for so long, of like, of consistency, of schedule, of, I literally felt like I ran from that my whole life. And now I'm kind of at a point where that's the biggest thing that I appreciate about, even this process as well, is I'm like, I have a calendar. I can look at it and I can see what I have going on, and I'm able to, actually say, well, this is my week, this is my month, this is my year, and this year was the first year that I kind of had that planned. It definitely didn't go the way that I wanted it to. But now, looking for next year, okay, what did I learn? What can I apply? And how can I redirect that? Instead of it always just feeling like, chaos, and then start again, try it again, reset it. So
No.
Yeah.
Good. Those are
I
good
love that
lessons.
for you. Yeah.
Me
And
too.
I agree with you, Logan. Sometimes it's lonely,
Yes.
when you're in it on your own. And, since 2022, when I went out on my own, I did a lot of what you're talking about. It's like building the plane as you're flying it. It's like,
right,
here's my passion. Now, how do I lean into that in a consistent, organized way, meeting other people and, making
right.
sure that I don't feel like a nomad and
Yeah.
Right. And growing that support, right? That peer support of
Yes.
like, because I think,
Huge.
especially because for me, I come from the music industry and so much of it is gate kept and very secretive, and nobody wants to talk about how they figured something out or whatever. And like, I've always been a wealth of knowledge, maybe to my own dismay. Like I will tell anybody anything they want to know if I know it. I'm like, hey, here you go. Like, yeah, I have
Right.
information on that.
Share it. Yeah.
Then maybe, but I just think that's part of being a human, that's that gratitude thing as well. Is like, how can I make sure that I, am giving back as well? Because I feel like, nobody, what's Scott's line? No man is an island,
Yeah.
no, nobody is self-made. And I think that especially in that industry, at least for me, like that's what everybody is trying to put up a facade of like, oh, I did it on my own and nobody helped me. And I just, I'm just so talented and so great and you should love me. And I just think that like, that's not realistic. That's not, that's not sustainable. And it's honestly, it's a lie. Like it's a facade, and in art, sometimes that's cool to lie, to like put on this big show and like everybody accepts like there's the suspension of disbelief that this is what we're experiencing right now. But when it comes to the human beings that are actually active in creating that, I think that there's a big change that, probably needs to happen in that industry as well. That's just more focused on like, on growth within each other and open, clear authenticity. That isn't so much of I'm hearing what you're saying and I'm writing it down so I can use it later and make sure that I don't say anything about you telling me it kind of thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a good transition into kind of a little bit of a reflection we wanted to do back on our guests. The whole idea of the Her Resources podcast is to really give a voice to those who really are involved in not only human resources, but really women's issues. And those are both, women and men alike who are a part of all of this. And so, Cyndi, as you think back, like what's one of your favorite episodes that we've done so far?
Well, I mean, they've all been my favorite. So first of all, when I go back to thinking gratitude, I'm so grateful that people not only were willing to come onto the podcast with us, but they seemed excited about it. And I was like, oh, that's so
I know.
cool.
Yeah.
So our first guest, I have to shout her out, was Dr. Jennifer Cooper.
Yes.
She works with my husband, and she's also allowed my daughter, who is a medical student, to be able to shadow her. She is a doctor of obstetrics. See, I never can say that word. I'll be very grateful the day I can say that word without stumbling over it. And gynecology. And so she's just so real, right, Linda? Wasn't she just so
Oh my
down to
gosh,
earth?
yeah. That was one of my
She was.
favorites, for sure. Listening back to
Yeah.
that episode,
Yeah.
I just had so much fun with her and,
And she with us.
oh my goodness, she did. And the fun thing about all of that is, we talked, about, creating Cooper's Corner, and
Yes.
having Dr. Cooper come on and do
And
some
she's all about
future
it.
episodes. Yes, and I thought, what a cool thing. And you know what I took away from that as well is we gave her a voice in a different way. Because she's a doctor, obviously she spends time doing all of that doctor work that she does. This gave her a chance to have a platform that was just, wide open and allowed her to just be her true authentic self, which is such
Yes.
an incredible human being. I had so much fun with Dr. Cooper.
She was great.
Yeah. And I mean, I think her whole philosophy about it's a collaboration between her and her
Yes,
patient, and good for all of us to learn, right? You go in and you talk to
absolutely.
your doctor, let them know everything. Don't hold
Yes.
back,
Right.
but also
Yeah.
Yeah.
know, they're going to have to kind of approach it from, okay, what is the most risky thing and how do we
Right.
address that? And,
Absolutely.
but it is that collaboration. Logan, it sounds
Yeah.
like you got a lot out of that one too.
I did. I really enjoyed that. Again, I think that that's kind of, I'm misplaced here, right? As a man. So I get that. I recognize it. I think that that's
You're
kind
not
of something
misplaced.
I've dealt with. Well, thank
I mean,
you.
it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that,
That topic.
that's kind of something, that I recognize, I'm a straight white man. I get it.
Mhm.
We have been more or less well, I'd call it maybe the salt of the earth, but we've been the leading factor, you know what I mean, for so long, in the sense of like that's just wrong. No one person is better than any other person.
Mhm.
And like the one thing that I really loved about hearing her talk was kind of like, it was interesting to me because I think like I was lucky, I guess maybe when I was growing up, that like I had a lot of female figures around me. I had a lot of female friends that were just friends, like not romantic, anything like that. I
Mhm.
think a lot of men can't break through that with women of like, oh, this can be just a human being that I'm interacting with and we can be friends. Like there doesn't have to be any extra pieces attached to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And listening to her talk about like for her to be able to just address people as opposed to, because I'm sure
Yeah.
most of her work is one-on-one, you know what I mean? She's
Mhm.
talking to
Yes.
an individual about what's going on with them. But I thought that it was so nice to like hear from somebody who is in that field. And it's also so sad, I think, because I have a lot of females in my life who unfortunately haven't even had an opportunity to get that type of doctor guidance from an
Yeah.
OBGYN. I've heard a lot of horror stories, honestly, more so about, people having to deal with that. So that was one thing that I was really enlightened by, that I was just like, okay, like that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that, because I don't know, it's
Mhm.
something that I'm like, I only hear what I'm told kind of thing. And so I appreciated it. And she was so nice and so kind. And I could tell too,
She
because that was the
was.
first time we brought a guest in for like the studio to try to do
Yes, our
those
in
ones.
studio, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was like so chill, I know for me, that was a big one. I'm like, oh, we're coming to the house, so you got a basement, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Try it out. And so it was
Mhm.
so nice that also that she was so receptive to that. And she was so
Mhm.
kind and like willing to
Yes.
just, roll with it as it was
Good
happening.
human
Cause
being.
Right, yeah, but she
she took
was
it
a
with
champ.
stride.
She
She really
did.
did. No, I really enjoyed that one. One of my other favorites was Allie.
Oh,
Allie is just
Mhm.
such an
yes.
incredible human being, in general. But just the work that she has done and, not, she's just this young, vibrant woman who has dealt with so much trauma in her life and
Yes.
yet has such an incredible attitude. And I'm so grateful for her and her willingness to come on and not only share, but she carries the flag in a very active way,
Yeah.
because we can all say we support and we do these things, but what are you really doing?
She
And
lives
she's
it.
really doing, she's
She does.
living her
Yeah.
truth, and you've got to give a lot of credit for that. So I
Oh,
really enjoyed her as well.
she was amazing. And first of all, I was so appreciative that she shared with us about her involvement in the Sandy Hook Promise.
Yes.
And just her background and how real she was. She talked about her career as working with New York schools
Yes.
Right.
and, the the white person complex, or
Yeah.
I forget exactly how she
White savior.
white
Yeah.
savior
Yeah.
complex. Yes.
Yeah.
And just how vulnerable and how real Allie is.
Yes.
I mean, I hadn't met her yet, and Linda, you spoke so highly of her. And I mean, she filled my cup for sure. I just felt so inspired by her. And
She has
I know other people did too.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you,
She has a
Logan?
wealth of insight too.
Yeah.
I think that, just a comment on that too. And I appreciate that because I think that, and she even addressed that, and I appreciate I don't know. I feel like the longer that we push away the facts of the world and deny that they're true, the harder it is for us as people, right, to move forward. So I loved how insightful she was. I also liked that she was just, she was spitting facts. She was talking in a way that, and I think that some of those topics, I know we haven't really said that, like, we try to keep the podcast like kind of business casual,
non-political,
business casual.
But I think that that's kind of like, and especially for me as somebody who's gone through a lot of trauma, like when I was young, and not to bring any of that kind of stuff up either, but like you kind of, when you go through that, you kind of live in spite of it, and I think that that's something that like I've kind of tried to tailor around is like, I don't want to feel like I'm doing this in spite of this. Like, it's sometimes it's very humbling and it hurts a lot to accept that, like, well, that horrible stuff happened to me that made me the good person that I am today. And so you almost have to be you have to be so grateful for something so horrible. And like, that hurts sometimes to just like put in perspective for yourself. But I think once you're kind of able to do that and you recognize like, that is actually why, I'm better at conflict management, or maybe that is why I'm better at leading, or I'm better at, whatever those types of things are, is because you've actually been through it. And I know for me, like my thing was like, I went through that stuff so young that I didn't really care about school. Like I didn't really care about that kind of stuff. Cause I was like, well, what does that have to do with like my survival? Like, what does that have to do with me getting to tomorrow and making sure, you know what I mean? And when you're living like that as a kid, you don't understand what that feeling is, so you're not capable of like being able to put it into words or anything like that. And as you develop, you know what I mean? I think that you kind of get two paths. You either get to fully unwrap it and go through a very difficult process that is unfortunate, you know what I mean? But it's like so powerful and important. And if you do that, and you have support for that, then you'll come out better on the other side. And the unfortunate side is we don't have enough support, I think, to kind of lead people down that path, within communication and dialogue. And I mean, therapy, like I think everybody should have therapy, like every single person that should, if there's a campaign I would go for, it'd be that, like, let's get everybody a therapist,
Yeah.
No, there's some truth in that. I agree. Well, what was great about having Allie on is it does normalize the conversation in something that we do just need to talk about. We don't have to get uncomfortable. We just need to, or it's okay to even be uncomfortable. It's like that idea of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, I think is good. And so, no, I really enjoyed that a lot. And she's just amazing. And we will definitely have her back in upcoming episodes as well, because she's got so much more to share. And I think she'll be a fun guest for us to have.
To jump off that too, the hidden workforce thing I think was so important because like for me, I'm that, I think that like that's something I've struggled with so much of breaking into more of these corporate roles and stuff. It's like, take me seriously, recognize that like I can do this work and like blah, 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 blah. And I know the hardest thing for me, like I said previously, is just that the music industry, like not a lot of people take that seriously. It's kind of seen as a joke or a gag or just a party or something like that. And it's like, well, that's really not how it is like that for some people,
Sure.
But it's like that
so you do take it seriously, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the party stuff, like I think that comes in every industry. You know what I'm saying?
Sure,
like
for sure, yeah.
Hard bet somebody made $100,000. They want to spend some, you know what I mean? They're like,
even in the corporate world, there was a time when things were much relaxed in the corporate environment, almost, to a fault. And so, there's always been an element of some of that to some degree in every industry. And I think reminding everyone of the fact that there is a whole workforce out there that hasn't been tapped into because we've stigmatized differences. And so we've just made assumptions that people can't function in certain environments because we've created those norms. And so I really appreciate that too. Yeah, I think that was a really fun episode to talk about. So
one more thing that I'd like to say about Allie too, before we move on to the next guest that we really enjoyed, is she said, and I really took this to heart, and I've told everyone who will listen about this, that especially younger people who are just now getting into the workforce, that when you go to apply for a job, even if you are not 100% qualified, if HR folks can put some sort of disclaimer or even talk to people about apply anyway, you likely have skills that are transferable. So go for it and apply.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I love that she said that too, because that speaks to all of us, right?
Me too. So, I totally agree. I think that was a really good one.
Are you looking for innovative and creative content options? Needing audio or video production or consulting? Or do you just have a great idea that you want to bring to life? LJM Productions specializes in making the big picture attainable, from commercials and social media content to just audio-visual cleanup and editing. We are here to make your next big project a reality. For more information or to receive a quote, email ljmproductionsco@gmail.com.
You know, Cyndi, one of my other favorite episodes, and I said this when we posted it, was that it felt like going home for the holidays.
I know
so
which
being
one.
being with Jennifer and Tamara, I just really, it is, you think about how long it's been since we worked at the city and county of Denver.
Over a decade.
But it speaks to it speaks volumes about the connections that we all made together. We've all gone different ways, and yet we've all stayed together. And coming back, it didn't feel like there was any span of time between. And those, oh my gosh, yes. And those two women are just a wealth of knowledge. I love hearing what they have to share with everyone. They really are. Yeah.
Yeah. I loved some of the stuff that they said. Jennifer called what they do, because they're public servants. So Tamara Dixon leads HR for the city of North Glen, Colorado, and Jennifer Fairweather leads HR for Jefferson County here in Colorado. And one of the things that we were talking about, kind of the difference between public sector, which Linda, you and I worked for the city and county of Denver for several years, and corporate or other kinds of industries. And Jennifer called it a vocation. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that's how I felt about it when I was there. You feel a sense of pride for your contributions. And you look around the city and all the different things that people do, from, public works to parks and recreation to, what we were doing with payroll and with, some HR functions there as well, and making sure that people got paid correctly and could take time off. And then I did notice that the former city controller, Beth Machan, liked that episode, which touched my heart too, because Beth was so instrumental in our journeys there. And then Tamara also spoke about her dad always telling her to be of service. And just, they're both living what they believe in. And I'm so inspired by that.
I am too. Well, and it just makes me, I am so grateful for the opportunity to have worked for the city and county of Denver. And it gave me a new perspective on the work that government workers do. And I say this all the time in the work that I do today, is that it's not the government that provides services, it's the people who provide the services. And I think that, COVID highlighted that, thank goodness. But I am so grateful for those government workers who are out there keeping things running that you have no idea they're keeping running. Because most people have no idea what all of the different industries within the public sector really are. When I'm out there talking about this stuff in my other job, in my day job, I talk about that government is a single employer with multiple industries. And so you have, as you were mentioning, parks and recreation, you have public works, you have health and human services. So
I think Jennifer even said that is they have everything but sales. Like
Everything but sales,
if you
yeah,
want to
and
do it, they got it.
maybe not
Yeah.
manufacturing, true
Yeah.
manufacturing is probably the only thing, but everything and like she
All
said
of it.
as well as you can't say, "Well, I'm not gonna work with this client anymore because they're,
Right.
unruly
Right.
or impossible to work with." When you're dealing in public safety or health and human
That's
services
right.
or any of it, well, and we used to joke about this all the time, it's like you can't if you aren't happy with, going in and getting your services, it's not like you can just say, well, I'm going to go to, the city of North
Yeah.
Glens motor vehicle
Yeah.
because I like it better than the city of
It's not
Denver's motor
crazy
vehicle.
about
Yeah,
DMV.
Yeah.
it's
So,
not
yeah.
how it works. And
Yeah.
so it is really just a fascinating environment. But I am very grateful for that opportunity. And I'm grateful for the people who do lead with a servant heart and
Yes,
that
which
that's
they
the work
talked
that they
about.
do. Yeah,
Yes.
I think so too.
Through their
No.
roles and with Dweneman, which is their consulting firm. And
Yes.
yeah,
No, I think it's
Well, and
incredible.
I appreciate that a ton because I think that like, for me, like my job as it is now is focused more in like production, which call it honestly glorified project management, really, just with some more technical stuff attached to it. But I always kind of looked at what I was doing as like in service to like an
yeah,
artist, right? In service
Yeah.
to them making what's in their brain,
Mhm.
happen. And I think that it's taken for granted, just in its smallest sense. So
Yeah.
I love that like we've been able to kind of highlight that and push that like information a little bit more forward. I mean, especially with like the HR thing too. I think for me, like in my experience with any real job I had, HR just filled paperwork, and I never ever saw them again.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
and I think that obviously depending on the scale of the company or more what they're, what I mean, what they're focused on. But I
Mhm.
would say like a big one for me that I'm like, man, they really need to implement this more is in like F&B, like food and beverage, because it's just,
Mm.
I have a lot of
Yeah.
experience in that. And I've managed restaurants and I've worked like that, but it's like, it's so draining on me because usually what ends up happening is exactly what you have been talking about over the span of the podcast is your manager becomes your everything person
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
is now in charge
That's
of
right.
leading and training and trying to get these people to follow along.
Mhm.
And if that manager doesn't have any support, well then how are they ever going to make this place run better?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've seen that, especially like for me, just like having a business mind and like going to business school is like I understand from that perspective. You have your bottom line. You have to make this amount of money. You know what I mean? There's certain things you got to do to keep the lights on. That's just the way it is. You got to charge this, whatever. But I think that there is that like that switch of focus. You know what I mean? And I
Mhm.
think you see it a lot in more of those smaller scale jobs, if that is what you call them. You know what I mean? But I think that might even be something, to put it out there as we're moving forward. It's like bringing somebody like that in to be able to communicate a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody who
Yeah.
works in those types of industries, maybe to talk about what they might be doing to further them, because McDonald's isn't going anywhere,
Mhm.
right? It's not like it's such a huge company, it's such a big business, but that's not really your core model for a restaurant. That's not your core model for, you know what I mean, other types of, you know what I'm saying?
They've
Like
got
you
some
can't
pretty strong leadership
point the top.
programs,
Yeah,
McDonald's
exactly.
does.
And it's
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know, Starbucks does too for
Yeah.
whatever they're worth.
Yeah.
Obviously it might be a little controversial of them, but exactly. Like I've heard really awesome things that have come out of those places
Yes.
for individuals, for employees that are helping them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think that that's kind of something that's, you demean all of these people by telling them that their job isn't worth evolving, that their job isn't
Yeah.
worth growing, and I think you see that in a lot of industry,
Mhm.
but it's up to leaders and individuals who are actually passionate about that. And I think that was something, especially about the Jennifer and Tamara run that I took, that was
Yes.
so important, was like they care about their job, right? What's that old saying? Like,
Yeah.
do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
And I
that's
right.
think
very
that
true.
that's very true about like, you know what I mean, that type of industry is that it is there. And especially for government too. I mean, I think my generation, that's something that, we probably need to be a lot more active in, because that's why
Mhm.
things don't move as well, before dipping too far into anything like that.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's just because people, if you're not engaged, if you're not, I had a teacher at school that told me, the world is ran by those who show up,
Yeah.
and
That
he
was great
told this
advice. Yeah.
story about, this dude who like worked his way all the way up through like local government just because he showed up. He was horrible, bad at his job, really.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Not in good representative of like what the system or what they're, you know what I mean, what they wanted, but it was just this person showed up. And it's kind of like, that's the truth. So for yourself, as you're looking forward, okay, I want to make a change, I want to do something, then show up, you know, make sure you're a part of that, be a part of of something, right? Because otherwise you're just kind of floating, and like some people, that's fine for them. I'm not discounting that at all, but I think that if you really do see, you know, something that you want to change or you want to be a part of or something, it's just as simple as getting involved, and you never know where it will take you. You know, I think that we focus so much on business and job as like, I mean, that is how everybody's getting there. You know, they can pay to have the house to be grateful for, and they can, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's like, my dad always says that one too. You don't have time, you don't make time, you know, and that's true. Like it does take a level of personal commitment and personal dedication to say that I got off work at 5:00 and I'm going to change my pants, and at 5:30 I'm going to go to this meeting, you know what I mean? And I'm going to go do those things as well, because you know, I learned that from my industry. Everything I do is hobby based. That's what everybody's looking at it. You know what I mean? It's just a hobby. It's just a hobby until all of a sudden you're a multimillionaire. And now, oh, it's just a hobby. You know what I mean? And I think that that's kind of like the reason why those people continue and they grow and they, you know, do that is because, they're still doing the day-to-day things that they need to survive, but they're doing that extra piece that is in service to what they want to accomplish and what they want to grow.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
That kind of leads me, being of service also leads me to think about Dennis Miller. Yeah. Our conversation with him, he's amazing as well. And what a wealth of knowledge he has.
He was,
and he came from the military background into HR again, because, you know, he felt it was a natural transition because again, in the military, and my brother was in the military for 30 years. So shout out to the military and thank you all for your service. But, you know, Dennis talked about how that was a natural transition, then service in the military to service of people through human resources.
Yes.
And that's why so many of us did or do that today in HR, is to be of service to people. So
very true. Yeah, he's such a wealth of knowledge, and just I really enjoy listening to what Dennis has to say, because he is one of those examples of staying current. So it's easy sometimes to rest back on our laurels of, you know, how it used to be. We all kind of live in that past environment sometimes, but Dennis is a very forward thinker. He's a forward thinker in human resources, and really, you know, driving that technology and the support behind technology in order to free you up to be able to do what the true purpose and passion of human resources is, which isn't just about, you know, what Logan was saying about getting people hired and getting their benefits and that sort of stuff. There's a whole lot more to human resources that does kind of get sidelined a little bit, because we do focus in too much on just the onboarding, the offboarding, and the, you know, just the kind of tactical side of human resources.
Disciplinary, right? Problematic.
Oh, sure.
Like,
yes. That's very true.
You know, and that's an important side.
We have to do.
Gotta
do it.
But I think so many of our guests that we've gotten to talk to, including Dennis, who is also so pragmatic. Like, it was like, you know, here's what we should do, but here's the reality of how,
here's what's gonna
how this happens, right? Even with reskilling and things like that. So
absolutely,
so many of our guests have been very strategic. Going back to our very first episode, Linda, you know, how do we take it from the tactical or the ground game to, you know, more of the strategic, or, you know, the sky, where we're really making a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And back to what you were saying, Logan, it's like, you know, it's more than just that every day, and it's supporting those managers like you were in the food industry, to be able to be effective, to be able to be supportive, to share what the organization's vision is, but also to support the people doing the work. So HR has such a big role, and
they do.
And I think Dennis really spoke to that very eloquently.
I thought he did too.
Yeah.
Well, and same idea. No, sorry, just that militaristic approach. I think, you know, I grew up with it too, and I think that as much as you want to fight it, like the value of that is that the truth is that do it.
Yes.
give it a try, and even Andrea, I appreciated that when she was talking about, don't be so afraid to offer, recognition. Don't be so afraid to try, you know what I mean? Something new, because you don't know how it's going to go. And it's like, that's the truth, but the most dangerous phrase is that it's always been that way, it's always been that way is why right now we're going, wow, there's issues that should have been solved 50 years ago
Right.
that, we're still trying to work around, or hundreds of years ago, some of them, that it's just like, and the more people you get cued into that perspective, which I think is also in my mind kind of what my thought was when I pitched the show too to Linda, was like, let's be that perspective then, like, let's be that I'm willing to put my boots on the ground and to try. And I'm also willing to think a little bit bigger. And I'm also, you know what I mean? And like, let's have those dialogues with people, because obviously we're not singularities. Like, there are other people that are feeling that way, that are wanting to do that and wanting to grow. But it's just a big difference of the actualizing it, and I think that that's something that, hate it or love it, the military, like, that's what they're all about. That's what they teach you, is to just do it,
Right. And when you do it, exactly, that discipline then builds it into your mindset so that you don't really have to think about it as much.
Right. It's just now you're just acting. And it's hard to start, but exactly that discipline that, I think that that's something probably everybody is lacking in some way. I know I lack discipline and my health, or my, you know what I mean, blah, 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 blah. And
not me.
It's true though.
Not everything. No, I'm
no, absolutely. Very regimented. That's right. No.
But in that same vein,
I think though the other thing is, like, not just the discipline, but it's also you learn to trust the people around you, right? And you show up and you do what you say you're going to do, and you have to trust the people that you are with. And I think, interestingly, I love that Dennis brought that up, because it does really tie into how much really what happens in the military, and aside from what their true purpose is, as Dennis pointed out, which is going to war, right? It's to protect this country.
Right.
But the other side of that, the training, the discipline, the trust, all of those components, those are all skills that you can apply to. They're very transferable skills, which he proved as he transitioned back into the civilian side of the world. So I think those were really good points for sure. So
and not to discount the tragedy and the trauma that it is to be in battle.
Yeah. Gosh, no. Yeah.
You definitely come back a totally different person from that. But that's that same thing. The military, the more they support for those type of people as they're coming home, and also the more businesses are allowed, that's that hidden workforce type of thing too, is like those individuals who, exactly.
The military are very untapped when they come back into civilian life, is that they are very much a part of the untapped workforce, surprisingly, because you would assume that, you would immediately turn to that. And you don't. So,
because it's hard to transition, I think, depending on the personality type. I think that if you're a real type A personality, a real like pusher, I think that those are the things that are kind of drifting from like management and leadership now. Like, I don't think people necessarily want to be told what to do in that same vein of like, just do it, I was always that. I hated that. You tell me just do it because I told you to, or whatever. Like, I never got that. Yeah. I want to know why. And it's obviously that's a little bit nuanced. There's certain things that you could just do and it makes sense. But I think that when it comes to those bigger pictures and those bigger plans, especially when you're conversing with your peers or with that type of stuff, and I think that that's kind of where that growth comes in within your peers, like you were talking about, Linda, too. Is that trust in other people. Because I think that that's what the other side is it makes you feel like, I felt that way for a very long time. Like, if somebody couldn't do it, I'd just do it, and then I'd be mad. And like, I would just hold that in at them.
You feel resentful and
I made that situation, I started that, I caused it. So like, being more constructive on that, of saying like, oh, well, maybe if I would have communicated better, maybe if I would have been willing to listen to what they had to say, or if I had even just proposed it, you know what I mean?
That's a
Because
part
I
of
think
growth
that,
and leadership, though, Logan. I think
yeah,
what you're talking about there is really it's growth and leadership, which is what we've really what we've heard from a lot of our guests is really talking about that leadership aspect and
right,
really. And I think the other point that you were making there is that there is a change in the hierarchical side of things where that everything was done a certain way because this is the way that it was done and you followed the
It's
chain
always
of
been done
command.
this way.
And you do
yeah,
still have there still does need to be a chain of command. I think it's silly to believe
right,
that you completely remove that. But I think to your other point is that the change in leadership is that it isn't just do it because I said so. It's
right,
please do this because these are the reasons why, and this is the impact, which kind of leads to
And I'm
one
going to
of
go first.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, and it leads to on Andrea, right? And our
Yes.
episode and her whole conversation around employee engagement was her big passion point as we were kind of reflecting on trends in human resources. But the one thing she was really holding to was around employee engagement. And
Yeah.
we're hearing a lot of that. And employee engagement ties directly to everything that we've been talking
That's
about this
right.
morning. So
for
all of
sure.
those
Right.
pieces.
Because you
So
gotta have the people want to be a part of it. You know, like I think Dennis had made that mention too about that is, you know, if your business is set up to where people have to ask for the support, you miss a ton of them, you know,
Yeah,
because people are
yeah,
scared to
absolutely.
do that. They're scared they don't want to open up or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it is about that environment, you know, and I know that culture talk too, which kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
I think it really is dependent on where you're working and what's happening in your place. But I think that that's kind of the most important piece as you're growing, right? And as you're in business, especially. I mean, I've learned that
Right.
for sure. I have a list of questions that I ask clients now. I have, you know, I'm like, I want to know the most that I can about this person and the project they're trying to accomplish before I ever get a check, before I ever, and, you know, granted, yeah, that takes time. That's a valuable resource that you have, you know what I mean? But if you do that, now all of a sudden, not only have you saved your client time, you saved yourself time, you saved, you know, probably big ass headache along the road if you had those conversations beforehand and you understood and you
Right.
managed
mhm,
expectations.
Yeah. And what you're describing there too, Logan, leads me to something else that Andrea Adams said. And she's the host of the HR Hub, which is another
yeah,
podcast. And so we brought her on, to your point, Linda, to talk about themes, but she also talked about psychological safety.
yes,
And when you are in an environment, back to employee engagement, right? If I
yeah,
feel that there's psychological safety, I can speak my mind, I can share ideas, I can be innovative. I've got a team around me that we're all in this together. It's just my engagement level goes up so much. And,
yes.
Right.
from an
And
HR
you're having
perspective,
fun.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Maybe it's
right.
a
No, I
but
think that
exactly.
you
You are
can. Yeah,
enjoying yourself, right?
that's
You're
right.
saying, wow, like I am excited to get up and to do this.
Yeah, and that's so much a part of, I think, in going back to the beginning of our conversation here, I'm so grateful. First of all, Logan, thank you for coming up with the idea of this
Oh,
podcast.
yeah.
Linda,
Thank you.
thank you for inviting me to be a part of it with you. And, I think to what you were just saying, Logan, I think we are all learning so much and having these conversations and then bringing various perspectives and people who have different backgrounds onto the podcast with us. I know for myself, I've learned a ton since the beginning of this journey, which has not been that long.
Right.
And
Right,
I
Yeah.
feel like I've
yeah,
gotten
Relatively
so
short.
much out of it. Yeah. So,
yeah,
thank you again. Going back to gratitude. Really appreciate it.
absolutely. No, I'm very grateful for both of you. I'm grateful for our listeners out there, and we
Yes.
hope that, you've really enjoyed this last several episodes, and we have so many more amazing guests on the docket coming up for future episodes. And I'm just really want to thank both of you, and I hope that you have an amazing Thanksgiving. And I hope all of our listeners out there as well, maybe give a little listen during the holiday and consider subscribing to our podcast because we'd love to hear more. And please, if you have any feedback or comments, we love to hear them. And so
Yeah.
So share back with us. But thank you both so much, and we'll just continue on this journey of gratitude and bringing these amazing guests and these amazing messages forward for everyone out there.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the HR Her Resources podcast. We're so happy to have you with us on this journey. Music and production by Logan Misegadis of LJM Productions. We'd also like to thank our intern, Lauren Banas, for creating our logo and supporting our social media postings. If you'd like to connect with Logan or Lauren, you can find their information in the show notes. If you found value in our discussion and think someone else might as well, please follow and subscribe to our LinkedIn and share with a friend. Until our next episode, please take care and continue to support one another.